Welcome to the B2B CMO podcast, a show for marketing executives who are redefining what it means to be a strategic leader. I'm Jon Miller.
And I'm Sydney Sloan. Between us, we've led marketing orgs at companies like Marketo, which Jon founded, Demandbase, G2, and SalesLoft. For more marketing leadership resources, you can visit b2bcmoproject.com. And now, let's get into the show.
Hello, and welcome to today's episode of the B2B CMO Project podcast. My guest today has spent more than 25 years figuring out how marketing actually works, not just in theory, but inside companies like E-Trade, Adobe, and Box. He came up through the analytics and product side, and today he's the Chief Marketing Officer at Twilio, the platform for conversations in the AI era. And lately, he's been chasing a question I happen to care a lot about. What happens to discovery, to personalization, and to the CMO's mandate itself in the age of AI? Chris Koehler, welcome to the show.
Jon, great to be here. I don't think I've figured out marketing. It seems like it keeps changing constantly for us, but I am doing my best.
That is a really good point. I thought I had it figured out. I wrote the playbook a couple of years ago, but turns out apparently that doesn't work anymore either. So perhaps the key is just staying on our toes.
I think that is, staying nimble is really, really important in this day and age for sure.
Well, let's begin just by getting to know you a little bit. Every good superhero story has an origin. And I want to know, what's your origin? How did you become Chris Koehler, the CMO of Twilio?
Man, that's probably a long story, but I've always sort of liked the craft of marketing, but I probably thought about it when I was younger, more around sort of the human psychology and just brands in general. And I grew up, we talked a little bit about this. I grew up in both Florida when I was very young. I was lucky enough to live in Orlando and watch a lot of the space shuttles. We could talk about wanting to be an astronaut. I know that was one of your childhood dreams as well. And then I grew up in rural New Hampshire. And, I never thought, quite frankly, I was going to be working in tech. I thought, well, if I'm, I like sort of fun and adventure, I should be an astronaut or I should be a fighter pilot. And, but as I went to school and learned over time, sort of gravitated towards this notion of consumer behavior. And it always sort of fascinated me why people do certain things, why people buy certain things, why brands are more valuable than others. That's probably why I ended up marrying a psychologist.
Okay.
We can geek out on sort of human behavior on that front. But I spent sort of my career back and forth on different aspects of be it data driven, to understanding the craft of marketing, to being on the vendor side for many, many years. Spent many years at Adobe, helping build out sort of the art and science, what we talked about for a long time of marketing. And my first real, I would say, operator role at any scale, I'd done it at a startup, was at Box. And I was lucky enough to step into the CMO shoes. I know Trisha was on this podcast.
Yep.
A little while ago, and she was one of my calls when I was leaving, saying, "Hey, I think you'd be great at Box." I've been lucky enough to sort of play in the, on the customer side and the product side, a bit of a generalist at heart, but always coming back to the notion of what are the facets of human behavior and how can I shape our story, our brand, our narrative, to ensure that we're helping drive the most value, right, for the company.
Cool.
I'm not sure that's superhero worthy, but hey, life's pretty good.
Understanding the customer should be a superpower.
Yeah, 100%.
As you said, I wanted to be an astronaut too. I was in the Silver Patrol, thought I might go get my pilot's license and all that kind of stuff. For me, the fatal flaw was I had terrible vision, and I realized I would never be able to sort of actually achieve those dreams with the eyesight that I had. So,
yeah, I mean, my dad was in the FAA growing, so I grew up around a lot of airplanes, and but I guess maybe I never had enough money to get my pilot's license and move down that path. So, that was probably killed my dream. And quite frankly, I wasn't ready to go into the military to learn that way. So I ended up in marketing.
I was saving up for money to get my own pilot's license and all that kind of stuff. And when I didn't do that, I put all the money and bought a really high end Macintosh, and got into design and things like that instead. So we all have our crazy paths to where we get to.
I think it served you well, at the end of the day.
Yeah. Okay. So last just question, trying to get to know you. I like to, talk about, what's your 5 to 9, i.e., what's your passion outside of work?
For anyone that knows me, like I'm pretty crazy, like active, individual in our family. Like we like to do a lot of things. We are big skiers, golfers, hikers, travel. We love to travel. And so for me, anything getting out, being outdoors, being active, learning and digging into new things, like that's ultimately, what my family sort of prides ourselves on. So I think that's a big one. And then just learning, right? We have this motto of like always keep learning in our family. And so always trying to figure stuff out and learn and just get, 1% better all the time.
All right. That sounds good. So, as a segue, this is the B2B CMO project podcast. I'll let you in on something. When you and I talked, gosh, like more than a year ago, one of the things that you had said at the time was you didn't really feel like other CMO communities felt like your peers. That either they were smaller companies wrestling with different problems, or they were big companies, but not with B2B problems.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me, and 100% true. That is a big part of what pushed me to help try to start this B2B CMO project. So in a way, you're partly to blame or get some credit for all this. What were you looking for that you felt was missing from other B2B communities?
Yeah. I mean, I think, I'll give you an example of in times of crisis, right? Especially when you're at the top of whatever profession in any organization, everyone's looking to you for the answers. And in many of those cases, the reality is you don't have the answer, but you don't want to say, well, I can't look across the aisle and say, hey, my head of sales, what should I be thinking about from a marketing, or my head of product? What should I be doing with my marketing strategy around that? So you look for peers. And I remember very specifically during COVID, there was a group of CMOs that I had found out were meeting on a weekly basis for almost like a therapy session, because everything was changing. It was like, oh my gosh, we can't do in-person events. Digital's not working, this, that, and like, and what are you doing? What are you doing? And so I remember it was CMOs of Zoom and Okta and Slack and Twilio at the time. And like, there were like quite a few of the network. They would sit down and we'd share ideas and sort of riff off like, hey, here are the things I'm seeing and as part of that. And that worked for a while. And then sort of COVID died off. Everyone went back to their day jobs, right? They started running their teams and didn't need as much therapy. But I missed that craving of like, hey, I need other people. Like I'm struggling with a situation where I'd love to bounce an idea off someone. And I'd love to get their feedback on some of that. And so, like you said, I'm involved in many groups, but they're often like commingled, right? Where the companies of our size, I mean, we're 5 billion plus in revenue. There aren't a lot of software companies in that realm. And so I end up being around a lot of like B2C CMOs. And it's like the problems are the same, but it's not exactly the same. And so the idea which we had chatted was like, hey, how can I learn from other CMOs that are sort of at scale, that are dealing with a lot of the same challenges that I'm dealing with? And how can I learn from them? Because the reality is like, I don't have all the answers and I don't know who to turn to other than peers that are dealing with the same situation.
That is probably the single best pitch for the B2B CMO project that better than I could have done. In the project, the two big themes that the CMOs we talk to seem to be struggling with are one, just what does it really mean to be a strategic CMO in today's world? And then two, just dealing with all the change that AI is driving. So I want to just dive into both of those. So I guess starting with the first one, like, what does being a strategic CMO actually mean to you?
Maybe I'll put it in the framing of the strategy that I teed up for my team.
Perfect.
And I said, there's a couple things that I want to sort of be able to hang our hat, tell the rest of the company, like, this is what we're going to go focus on. And this is how we get a seat at the table, we drive value, and we're seen as a valuable component of the growth of this company. So the first one was, we have to drive growth. And that can mean several different things. That can mean in the self-service channel, right? We're driving traffic to, we're partnering with our product peers, and we are ensuring that our developers are getting access to the capabilities they need and getting up to speed quickly. And like, we have a role to play in that, because that's our future enterprise developer down the road. That can be in pipeline, right? How do we partner super closely with our sales team of together? We got to own pipeline. We got to build pipeline. That's the lifeblood of the company. So in driving growth might be, pricing. One of the things that when I took over, when I came to Twilio, I said, hey, I'd like to take on pricing, because I think pricing could be a growth driver, right, for the business, as we start to think about how do we simplify, how do we package, how do we do a better job of telling our story from a pricing perspective so our customers get it. So I said, we need to drive growth for the company, not like for marketing's sake. For the company, we have to drive growth. The next one is, we have to tell our story. Mm-hmm. And that takes many facets. Like, we have to be really good storytellers across the business. And it's not just the product, it's the corporate narrative. It's like why we exist. And we've got stakeholders. That's, we've got shareholders that, that own our company. We've got employees that we've got to get excited about coming into work every day. And we have, at the end of the day, we serve customers. And so customers need to both be inspired by what we're doing, understand what we can provide, right? And be aware of all of the capabilities. So it's like, tell our story, drive growth. And then one of the things that I said to him is like, this could be a little bit more internally focused, but like, we have to make Twilio simpler to buy, simpler to sell, partner with a sales team, like, reduce the complexity of this business and make it simpler, both for customers, for, our other employees in the company. So let's make it simpler. And that's, everything from the storytelling to the positioning to the pricing, all of those things. And then the last, I was like, we need to have fun. And what does that mean? It sort of came down to be bold. And I think, one of my observations, and I've been lucky enough to be in B2C and B2B marketing. I was at E-Trade during the fun days with the babies, and everyone was like, oh, what's going to be the E-Trade Super Bowl commercial? I wasn't there long. I was only there a year, but like, that sort of built into my psyche of like, why can't we have fun with our story and our brand? And I think B2B for too long has been too serious. We're still selling. Well, we've always been selling to humans. We're now maybe selling to humans and agents, which is a whole nother dynamic that we're learning from. But like, people want to be inspired. They want to have fun. They want to laugh. Like, we're, at the end of the day, we're selling to humans, and it's relationships and building trust. So let's have some fun with that. So that was the other principle. And I think if you take all of that and you're like, how do we simplify what we do? How do we tell a story? How do we drive growth? How do we be bold? That's what a strategic marketing organization should be able to do in a company. If we can do those four things, like, we are going to be, right, seen as a strategic partner in the company. And we've seen that over the last 2 years. And we've been lucky enough to have, some great success on that.
And you didn't mention MQLs once that entire time.
I mean, like, listen, it's a necessary evil, but at the end of the day, like, I've seen too often through my career where people are high-fiving on how many MQLs. And the reality is, like, unless it's driving revenue for the business, it doesn't matter. It's an ends to a mean. It's a math formula that we build out. Revenue is the thing that everyone in the C-suite cares about.
Is there something that you've seen or that you think like a tactical CMO does that you explicitly don't do, or vice versa, something that you do that you definitely don't see a tactical CMO doing?
They're kind of I don't talk marketing ever
Uh-huh.
in with my peers or in the board. I talk about here are the business drivers. I will say, like, I would never get into a world where we talk about MQLs, SQLs, any of that stuff at the board. This is how much pipe we've got enough coverage. Our CRO and I are aligned that we're going to be able to get to our revenue targets next quarter. Like, that's the level of detail that they care about. They're like, are you guys going to be able to get to the targets that you've set out from when we were a public company from a street perspective? I don't use like marketing jargon at all. In any of our discussions, I talk about okay, revenue, profitability, growth. Those are the language of the C-suite is how I talk. Not hey, let me walk you through all of the marketing jargon that I've got to give you basically a cheat sheet of like what the heck is he even talking about. So I think that's one. I think talking about pipeline as the goal, pipeline is not the goal. The goal is revenue. Pipeline is the way to get to the revenue. So again, the way you frame it is all around revenue, not about pipeline. Pipeline is what you need to get as part of that. So I think there's examples of that where that I see that quite a bit, and then I often see in one of the things that I guess maybe because I've been in so many different parts of the organization, I've been in the sales organization, I've been in the product, the othering of like, oh, well, the product team does that, or oh, the sales team is part of that. Like, no, 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 that does not happen in our org. We're all part of one cohesive unit that we've got to work together. So I've seen that probably too often where it's like we're in this together. We own the number. And that's pretty uncomfortable. Like my teams, it's taken some time to get there, but it's shared goal, shared accountability. If sales misses the revenue number, that's my fault. In addition to our CRO's fault, right? We together own this. And too often it's like, well, sales didn't do this, and I'm like, oh, go spend a week in their shoes, and then come back to me and complain about why they're not doing something you need them to do.
Yeah. I think I saw also that you played a lot of soccer when you were younger. Is that
I
right?
did. I played in at university and still an avid fan.
So I actually like to use soccer as an analogy, for all this. Like, sure, you've got forwards and you've got fullbacks, you've got people in playing different positions, and those have different roles and responsibilities. At the end of the day, though, what you care is, did you get the ball in the net? Did the team score a goal?
And the assist is just as important as the goal itself, right? You may not get all the glory. And you see this sometimes where, and it happens in soccer, football, where, the guys or women scoring all the goals get all the glory. The reality is the person that gave the ball was just as valuable as part of that. And that's okay. And in some cases, marketing plays that role where we've got the assist and we're not scoring the goal. The sales team might be doing that, but that's okay because we're all on the same team. At the end of the day, it's we. It's not I or us. Yeah.
You're winning as the team. I've had some CMOs like worry, like, oh, but if like I'm not measuring my marketing contribution, like, then I'm like, what if I have poor performers, or what if there's somebody who's not doing right? And I would say, like, a great soccer team cares about the scoreboard and do you get enough points, but that doesn't mean the coaches aren't filming each player, and they're still giving coaching to each individual, and you can still optimize each individual even as you care about the team winning as a whole.
Yeah, 100%. Like just because I'm not sharing with the board some of those marketing metrics doesn't mean that I'm not actually measuring the success around that. It's just like what we share externally, the goals are different than what my scorecard looks like internally.
I think that's very, very well said. Let's move on to kind of the second area, which is how AI is changing things. And I know this is something that you've been thinking about and digging into, quite a bit. You've even alluded to it, like what happens when the buyer is increasingly not just a human, but an actual AI agent? What does that mean for attribution, for how we as CMOs can actually prove that we're having some impact?
Yeah, I mean, this world is it's changing so fast, and quite frankly, it's hard to keep up with just the amount of innovation and change. it's both the most exciting time and probably the most terrifying time as a marketer to be in this industry.
It's also a really exciting and challenging time to be building technology for marketers.
Or building technology, because that's a whole another component of this, right? And so there's a world where, for the first time sort of in human history, like, the other person that you're selling to may be not a human, but is doing something on behalf of a human, for the most part, as we start to think about it in an agentic world.
Yeah.
And I think it all started, I don't know, 18 months ago, or it's probably almost 2 years now, when with this notion of AEM, and you had, ChatGPT and Anthropic, and you keep going down the list of all of the different models, where consumer behavior has changed so radically in the last couple of years that your default for everyone was, let me go to Google. Let's Google that. That's my starting point. And I'll argue, like, that was a well-known, tried and true. As a marketer, I could either optimize through SEO, or I could buy or do both. And I could be relevant in a conversation depending on how much I wanted to spend around that. Now that's completely changed, because there's not a single player in that front. There's multiple models. It's not deterministic. So ask the same question multiple times, you're going to get a different answer. And so all of a sudden, like, the complexity of what I've got to go optimize changed, like, radically. So AEO was the first start of this. And we get into a world where I had this epiphany, probably, I'm trying to think, I was sitting in a hotel room in Boston and a few months ago, maybe it's 2 or 3 months ago. And I think for a while I thought, okay, AEO, that's an extension of SEO. Like, I've got a team of content, like, let me just do a better job of SEO that's now for AEO. And then I took a step back and I was like, you know what? I'm not thinking about that right. Actually, everything in marketing is now geared towards AEO as this new avenue, where everything that we do, we have to optimize for both AEO, the answer engine optimization, which, again, for a while it's going to be humans, but it might be for humans doing search. It might be for your agent doing search. All of a sudden, now everyone in the organization needs to be thinking through, how do we optimize content in this new world? And it was like this, whoa, light bulb came off. It's like, everything's changed. And we got to get everyone rallied around thinking through, right? Who were we writing content for? And the team basically, we did a workshop and we spent a bunch of time sitting in a room trying to figure out, how do we position this? How do we make sure we rally the whole company and the whole organization around this? And we're like, we are going to write for humans and optimize for agents. And we think that ultimately, at the end of the day, the agent is doing something on behalf of a human. And this was another sort of epiphany that I had, was that AI agents, at first I thought it was like a new persona of, like, an AI agent is this new persona. The reality is, an AI agent is a persona, but it's an extension of a task or a human that's doing something on their behalf. So if whatever I would have written for a human, that AI agent should think through, like, okay, that's the content that I need, maybe in a slightly different format, but I'm going to still optimize around that. So much has changed. I know that was a lot, but we're in the midst of, I think, as an industry, trying to figure this all out. And every time the new model comes out, there's another change. We're all scrambling, trying to figure it out again.
Yeah. So, I mean, how are you? I'd just like to dig a little deeper. How are you operationalizing some of these things? So, for example, what are you actually measuring around the success of this stuff? What are you keeping internal to marketing? And is there anything that bubbles up outside of marketing on this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, I'm sure I'm not unique in this, that my team and me personally gets, snippets from the board or from the executive team or someone else in the organization said, hey, I was in ChatGPT and I searched for this and we didn't show up, or X, Y, and Z. Like,
no, that never
we were getting
happens.
enough. Yeah, it never happens. And so I was like, okay, we need to educate the whole company that we're actually on top of this, and we've got a strategy and we're working through. And so last week in the all hands call, my team actually did a full session of, like, here's what we're doing to address the AEO, so that basically, okay, guys, like, stop sending us messages. We are on top of this as part of our strategy. We're working through all of it. which I got a lot of really positive feedback because it eased the minds of so many of the employees being like, oh, okay, they're working through it. They've got a plan. Okay, if it doesn't show up, maybe there's a reason around that. So one, educating the company around what AEO is,
Market the marketing.
right? What it's not, talking to them about what our approach and plan is, talking to them about how we're doing and creating content differently, whether that is we're structuring the content in different formats, whether we are doing more video content, like all of those things, like we've got a clear, one of the aha moments too, is that we created a lot of content, but did it all work together in service of this new way that people were searching? Not necessarily. And so we had to create different work streams around the content. How do we prioritize that? What are the new areas? Because that's the other thing that's changed quite a bit as well, is the way that people search changed, right? It used to be like, for us, it'd be I need an SMS, API to embed in my product. Now it's like, I need to email and text message my customers. I'm building a new software platform. I'm looking for best in class of X, Y, and Z. Like, that's the query. How do I optimize that query? Well, it used to be like a keyword or two in there that we'd go bid against, or we had SEO around it. Now it's like, I got to figure out how we're relevant in that conversation.
Okay, so Chris, like, you're making all this investment in AEO and other things. I'm wondering about just more broadly, how have you thought about either rebuilding processes or teams to kind of move forward in this kind of AI world?
Yeah, I mean, full disclosure, we haven't figured it all out.
Nobody
I
has.
think, yeah, I mean, and I talked to a lot of my peers, and everyone's sort of trying to figure the same thing out. And it's interesting. The larger at scale companies are operating in a way that are very different than startups. And startups are running in a much more nimble, agile approach, and like they're creating new roles, right? That we don't have in our organization, and we're taking a sort of a lesson from them, saying, okay, well, how are you organized? What are the type of roles, and how should we be thinking through this? But I think the way I describe it is sort of our AI journey is it started with a lot of like access to the tools and driving personal productivity. And so that's where the first start, and that was probably 18 months ago to 12 months ago. Then you get into a world where you're like, okay, well, I'm more productive, but now my team needs to be more productive. So how are we building, what tools are we using to drive within my own team some productivity so that we can share and we can collaborate and we can work through and drive, more efficiency across the organization. And then it got into the world where we're like, okay, well, what about the cross marketing production of, let's get out of our own marketing silos and think through how do we reimagine, let's say, campaigns, right? How would we start, today? It may take, I'm like, hey, we've got a new idea. We want to do this campaign. It may take 6 to 8 weeks to get a new campaign out the door. And if you take AI and you optimize the existing workflows that you have today, you might be able to shrink that down, right, to 3 to 4 weeks. Everything is like incrementally faster. But what we realized was actually you need a system, you need to be on the same tools that are going to optimize this from start to finish. And you can't have one team optimizing in OpenAI, another's on Claude, someone else is on Gemini, they're all on different products. And you're like, okay, well, how are we going to share and drive this? So we took a step back and we said, well, actually, in that process, you might have multiple teams that are all responsible for a portion of the campaign. Someone's got the ideation and the creative, and someone built the brief, and then you've got the media plan, and you keep going on, and it's like broken up into lots of little individual tasks that go along almost like a conveyor belt. And if you're lucky, that goes smoothly. But what often happens is like teams will work through, and then they got to go back, and it starts, and then all of a sudden this adds so much time around that. So if you optimize the existing workflows that you have today with AI, you can only get so much efficiency. But when I challenged the team and I said, okay, well, what if I want a new campaign in 10 days? No, that's not possible. I was like, why is it not possible? What if you just reimagine how you do that. What if you put a single individual that is going to be responsible for driving that across the organization, and you put new AI tools in their hands, and they can go build this full thing with the support of others in the organization, but like get out of their way, let them go figure out how to get it out the door in 10 days. That is the transformation I think we're all going to have to realize. Now, what individual has enough knowledge to be dangerous, right? That can go do that. What's the right audience that we're going after? What's the right messaging? Where would we put this into market? How do we localize this? Like all of those things. Those are new roles, right? We didn't have anyone in the organization that was like, I'm going to go do this from start to finish. So you're getting into a world where new role types are going to be created. The silos amongst the organizations, even within marketing, are going to have to break down. And I think what we're going to have to do over the next 12 to 18 months is like reimagine how we're organized, right? Because the organization might actually, the way that we're structured might actually be the bottleneck to drive to getting better output faster. And that doesn't mean like what the scary part is when you talk like that, it's like, oh no, here we go. We don't need as many people. And it's like, no, actually, we have a backlog of ideas and things that we would love to be able to go do. I mean, I'm not sitting here being like, well, I'm so glad we can do everything that, we've come up with and brainstormed about the stuff. The reality is we all have to make trade-offs of constraints. It's like, well, I'd like to do this, but this one's more important. So that back burners and we do this approach. Like getting to a world where you can actually drive more, I think is the thing that we've all been promising. I mean, John, we've been in this space for a long time where we're like personalization at scale. I mean, I've been guilty of saying that for 10, 15 years. It's really, really hard. But I think there is a world where you could get into where that might be possible. And I think it's a better customer experience. It's better for the company and the brands. And that's where I'm sort of evolving over time. But it's really hard for employees too, because like it's all change, right? And I think that's the piece that we're all sort of grappling with.
What I love about what you did at the end there, right, was like you started mostly talking about AI to drive efficiency. Let's streamline 6 weeks down to 10 days and all that kind of thing. But the very end is like, oh, and let's also use it to deliver personalized journeys, one-to-one touches, interactions, which just was not possible before because of the complexity. That's about making our marketing more effective, not just more efficient.
Yeah, and I think, I think there's like the easy answer is to go into doomsday scenario and be like, oh my gosh, like no one's gonna have jobs, like this is terrible. AI is gonna do all of it for us. I'm not in that camp. Like I'm more of an optimist. I think, that what we're actually seeing is we're going to drive a lot more output. I think the question and the concern that I have for the craft is just because we can doesn't mean we should create. Yeah. Right. And I think what is going to be interesting over the next couple of years, forever in this industry, content was the bottleneck, right? Content was the limiting factor with everything that marketing did. It's like we just couldn't create enough creative or copy or offers or any of those things. Like it was just so hard because you needed human interaction and engagement as part of that. Now we're getting into a world where content is like ubiquitous and free almost to some point. And how do you flip it on its head so that you're using the most valuable content, the most, you're limiting those I think that will be successful are the ones that actually pare back how much they do versus, just spout off more and more content every day.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's exactly back to that personalization piece, right? The content is abundant and if we're not smart, we're all going to end up sounding the same because we're all using the same models. What's going to actually make us stand out and be different is the proverbial right thing at the right time for each person using all the data intelligence that we have available to us.
100%.
That to me is going to be the real unlock for what AI can do. So, well, this has been an awesome conversation. We always like to end with just giving you an opportunity to share gratitude. We talked about your origin story, but not all the sidekicks and supporting cast that helped you get to where you are. So are there any mentors you want to give a shout out to, or others kind of who helped you along the way?
I mean, there's tons. We'd be dishonest if we said we didn't get to where we are without a lot of help from, from people all along the way. I think for me, just I would say my family is the first one dealing with the craziness that is the life that we lead when we have these roles. I've had some great mentors. Steph Carrillo at Box gave me the opportunity to step into the CMO gig at Box, and I was very lucky to step into that role. It's been fairly life changing. I had a couple mentors at Adobe. Sadly, they both passed away, but that gave me the opportunity. One gave me the guidance and the feedback when I wasn't ready to hear it, but they were probably right, and making me better as a leader. But also then giving me the opportunity to, quite frankly, get ahead of myself and figure out how to do some of the roles that I was given, with the confidence that I would figure it out. So yeah, there's great mentors along the way. Yeah, I've been very lucky to get into this role, and I've had a lot of help along the way.
Well, Chris, thank you so much. I mean, I think there's just a lot of great meat to chew on from this call. I think probably one of the ones that stuck with me the most is when you're in front of the board, don't talk marketing, talk market. And similarly, how you sort of talk about pipeline is that's you own pipeline and you talk about it, but it's not the goal; it's just the path.
Yeah. I mean, I think is when people get into this role, think about it as you're a business leader driving a company. You're not a marketer. Marketer's your second hat. Your first hat is like, I'm helping to drive the company forward. And in that role, my speak and my language is very different than when I'm talking to my marketing team about the very specific components. And you have to play both, and you need to understand which situation you're in.
100%. And then on the AI side, I liked your line about write for humans, but optimize for agents. I think that's like a really clean argument. And I just love the hopeful note on the end, right? Which is AI is not about firing all our humans. It's about clearing the backlog and building on all those ideas that we never had the hands to really do. So, with that, I think, as you said, we should be simple, be bold, and have some fun with the story.
100%.
Chris Koehler, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the B2B CMO podcast. Head on over to b2bcmoproject.com for more episodes, plus the latest research and frameworks CMOs need, not just to survive, but actually thrive as AI and the new playbook reshape how we go to market. And if this episode sparks something for you, please follow the show, leave a rating, and share it with a marketing leader who could use a little inspiration. Special thanks to our wonderful partners, OneMind, 2X, Check, Demandbase, G2, Goldcast, LinkedIn, Fave, Sendoso, and Webflow for making this podcast possible. Until next time, be safe out there.